Hey, that's cool, Mallet. Oh, it's kind of heavy. Huh. Uh-huh. Wow. Guess I'm just not worthy. But you could. Stay tuned to the end of the video to find out how to win this mallet. All right, today's video, I'm gonna show you how to make this mallet out of scrap wood. Today we're gonna be using some purple heart and some hard maple. Let's go. Started at the table saw, we can go ahead and rip down the purple heart to width. We're gonna rip this down to 3.5 inches, which will be the height of the mallet. Now this purple heart did not have to be milled down as it was used from a previous project. Next we can go ahead and mark the length of the handle on this maple. For the handle, we're going to cut to 12 inches. Now we head to the miter saw to make our cut. The left side will be for the handle and the right side will be for the middle of the head. Now that we got the handle cut to length, we can head to the table saw and cut the width. We'll rip this down to 1.5 inches wide. Now we can go ahead and mark out our mallet length on this piece of purple heart. I'm using the handle as a reference just to make sure we get a good size for the mallet. We're going to go ahead and cut this at 6 inches wide. Now back to the miter saw to cut this out. We'll cut the first piece, set it on top, mark our line, and cut again. And now that we've got the handle cut, as well as the top, we can measure the distance for the handle, as well as how far the handle will protrude. The handle will go through at least 1/2 inch. That gives us plenty of room for our wedges. Alright, and now we're going to cut a tenon into the handle. Now there's several different ways to do this. I probably should have built a quick jig so that I could have had the handle upright. Instead I had it flat down, trimmed both sides, moved the fence, and then cut the other two sides. Now I grab a mallet and a chisel to clean up these cuts. Next time I perform this task, it'll be with the wooden mallet. And for the life of me, I don't know why I didn't use a stop block instead of this hold down clamp. Now to cut the inside, I'm going to move my miter saw to 2 degrees and then make the cut. Then I'll flip the piece, turn it back to 0, and cut. Alright, our first part of assembly. We're going to go ahead and take a pretty big dab of glue and rub it on the hard maple. I'll spread that across both sides. Rub them together to get a good consistent coverage, and I'll start lining it up. Now the most important thing here is to remember that you've got the flat side or the 90-degree angles on the outside and the 2-degree taper on the inside. We'll go ahead and pin that together, and then I'll get out the handle and check for fit to ensure that everything is going to be nice and tight in final assembly. After we have both sides glued and pinned, we'll go ahead and do a mock-up clamping, where I'll take the other side and I'll clamp it together in one unit. Now we can start addressing the handle. I've got a 45 chamfer bit in the router table. I'll take the handle and I'll chamfer all 4 sides. I'll use one of my push blocks, push it on top of it, keeping my fingers far away from the router bit. After a couple hours, we can go ahead and remove the clamps from the mallet. We're going to make this mallet a dead blow mallet, which means we need to cut a large hole on both sides of the mallet and fill it with something. I'm going to be using a 1-inch Forstner bit. Now I would use a larger one. Turns out it wasn't very sharp. And hard maple is tough for dull bits. I'm just plunging until I see purple. And now we can assemble the top part of the mallet. I'm going to grab a container of BBs that I've had in the shop for way too many years not being used. Now, we're either going to make a dead blow hammer or we're going to make some maracas. But either way, we're going to fill this thing up. Now I'm going to add some glue. But you can tell here I use way too much glue, but that's alright. More glue the better. We want a rock solid hammer. Once we have all the BBs inside, everything's glued up, we can go ahead and clamp this bad boy down. Now, due to my excessive use of glue, we've got some pretty good squeeze out. Here I'm going to use a small chisel and just clean up the inside of the mallet. Now it's time to clean up the sides of the mallet. We're going to put it back on the miter saw, set to 2 degrees, and start cutting. Now it's very important that you have this clamped down because this whole thing is only 6 inches wide. So better safe than sorry. Even with the newer blade, we got some burning. This produced a good amount of smoke in the shop. Last cut on the miter saw was for the wedges. Once again, we're going to set our angle to 2 degrees and cut our purple heart. After the first cut, we'll set it back to 0 degrees and cut again. Time to sand this bad boy smooth. When using a belt sander, I like to break the hard edges first on the disc before putting on the belt. You may see in the background there is a broken belt on the ground, as sharp edges like to catch the seam. And I can tell you firsthand, it is never fun when a belt breaks while sanding. I really wanted to give this mallet some character, so we're going to go ahead and chamfer every edge of the mallet. Now this is the most rewarding as it really gives it some shape. However, it's also the sketchiest, slightly scary part of the build. I've got the push block here, so my hands are pretty far away from the bit. I'm also really surprised I got very little tear out on this. Purple heart is just wonderful. I'm going to cut the slots for the wedges on the bandsaw. I'll cut these a little further than the wedge would go. This will prevent the wedge going into the handle and cracking the maple. All right, now that we've got the mallet cut, we've got it chamfered all the way around, we've got the handle cut all the way through, we've drilled a hole just to prevent it from cracking, and now it's time to assemble. So since I still don't have
a smaller bottle of glue, we are going to really get it in there. And I'm gonna make a mess, but that is all right. That is gonna get all over the place. Move that out of the way. Let's just call it art, table art. How about that? Okay, I don't think I need to put glue inside because there's so much on this thing, but let's go ahead and get glue in there as well. Okay. All right. Moment of truth. Pretty sure that constitutes enough glue. Now the shoulder should prevent us from going all the way in. Oh, yeah. Okay. Let's get these wedges put in. Let's just be gentle. This is when you need a mallet. There you go. Got it in there. That isn't going anywhere. It's all the way against the edge.
After letting the glue dry for 24 hours, we can now cut the top of the handle off of the mallet. Off to everyone's favorite part, sanding. Sanding. Now I started with 120 grit and worked my way up to 240. The assembly part of this mallet is done, and now it's time to make her look pretty and protect her. Now you could use any finish for this. I'm going to use some tung oil. And even though I boast about the durability of my tabletop, which can be hammered and drilled and beat up, I'm going to lay down a plastic bag. I might be crazy, but I'm not an animal. I picked up some new rags for this project, and man, they have got to be the worst. This is the most lint I've ever seen come off of a rag. Now look at that shine.
Alright, I hope you guys enjoyed watching this video today as we took some pretty nice scrap wood and made it into an all-powerful mallet. I like this thing so much that, well, I decided to make me one as well. I had some leftover purple heart and some walnut, so now I could roll my shop. Now to win this mallet, all you have to do is like, subscribe, comment down below. I'll be choosing a winner here in the next couple weeks so that you can roll your own shop. Until then,